As a man drifting around without a purpose, a lot of men are, the war turns inwards. It becomes a matter of consuming yourself. Because if I'm really gonna say that I want something, what backs that up? It has to be my action. When your goal is to make progress in your life, you are, by definition, inviting now a whole host of new problems that you have to solve. Most people grow up very risk averse, meaning always try to do the right thing. Just don't make mistakes. It's not about playing to win, it's about playing not to lose. This is delusional. This is just a fantasy. You can have anything, but you can't have everything.
You're just lying to yourself, and that's just miserable, honestly. Because people are like, yeah, but you're lying to others. Yeah, but you're lying to yourself. That's like 10 times worse.
Your life is never going to be that instantaneous feeling after solving a problem. Your life is and will always be the continual process of solving problems. Losers will always find a way to lose, and winners will always find a way to win. Nobody is thinking about you, they're too busy thinking of themselves.
Is there anything else you'd like to say to the world?
Well,
so I stumbled upon your Twitter recently and I found it interesting. So your bio goes thousands of hours of business, philosophy and psychology learnings distilled into hopefully useful sentences. How did you come around creating that Twitter account, and just tell us a bit more about it?
Good question. So I'm thoroughly into reading a lot of philosophy and psychology, and I've always found that fascinating. I actually did want to be a psychologist for a certain period of my life. I wanted to go into that as a field of study. So I find myself always wanting to extract out mental models and frameworks and ways to think that can be operated across in a multidisciplinary way across life. So I love to take little bits of things from philosophy and psychology and see how I can apply them to areas of my life. So I try to synthesize those and put them into, hopefully, again, useful little tweets on Twitter, just so that people can, hopefully take those and try to implement them in their lives somewhere and gain some kind of advantage over the position that they were in before having read it. So that's what I try to do with Twitter.
If you are not a man at war with your enemy, you are a man at war with yourself.
So this quote came to me a couple months back, and I think there's a couple of ways to look at it, that you can look at it. One of them is sort of a sort of Nietzsche take and perspective. A very similar quote from Nietzsche goes something like, "In peacetime conditions, the warlike man attacks himself." So that's a Nietzsche quote, which is one kind of take that you can have on this, which is, if you are a man who, by virtue of, let's say, being a man and being masculine, you need to have some kind of purpose. You need to have some kind of telos, right? Where your life and your actions need to be directed towards something. And if they're not directed towards something, you're in chaos, right? And so part of that idea in the quote that I wrote, if you're not a man at war with your enemy, you're a man at war with yourself, is if you do not specify an enemy, right? It's not enough to be at war, in my opinion, right? Metaphorical, it doesn't have to be a real war. It's not enough to just be in a warring state as a man, but you have to be very specific about who or what your enemy actually is, right? And if in the absence of that specificity, the easiest next thing to be at war with is really just yourself, right? So as a man drifting around without a purpose, a lot of men are, in my estimation these days, the war turns inwards, right? It becomes a matter of consuming yourself in, it could be substances, it could be, some forms of addictions, it could be, anything like that. But the war ends up, being an inward war. It ends up being a spiritual war inside your own brain, right? So you're not directed in any one way. I know a lot of people a lot of men, for whom if you just gave them something to do, all of the nonsense in their life would stop. They'd stop playing video games. They'd actually stop going out drinking every day with their friends senselessly. They would actually, if you just gave them something important enough to do, right, like an enemy, so to speak, important enough to fight against, they'd give all of the hedonism and all that stuff up in an instant, just to feel that sense of duty and that sense of purpose and some level of drive and honor that comes with that, and they'll be directed at that, right? So in some way, this quote kind of points to a little bit of the opinion perhaps that as a man you just have, you need a purpose of some kind. You need to be directed at an enemy. It doesn't have to be an enemy, but at something that gives you a purpose to drive towards. And so in the absence of that, you're likely to turn to things that will destroy yourself, right? You'll be at war with yourself, and you turn to hedonism, you turn to distractions, and I think that's quite a fitting story of our generation, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, clearly. And you say it came around 2 months ago. What was the life context back then? Why did this quote come around then? Do you remember?
I think I went out with a couple of friends who I've known for a few years, and I think it was just sensing that they weren't directed in any which way, right? And I noticed that they weren't similar to how I remember them to be. They were really quite at war with themselves, and I was wondering why, and sort of I think that quote sort of came to me, and I realized that it's really sometimes people just have to be given a purpose. They really just have to have a direction that they can steer the ship towards, right? Otherwise the ship is just going around the whole ocean. It just doesn't know where it's going. It's omnidirectional, right? So I think that was sort of the context. It was seeing it firsthand. I mean, whether it's I don't really cast a judgment on it, but I think I'm quite an observant person, and things will just hit me when I'm with my friends, or when I'm with people that I care about, and watching people suffer unnecessarily brings me pain. And then I go back and I analyze that pain when I'm alone. I'm like, why did I feel this pain when I was with this person? Why did I get some kind of secondhand suffering from it? And I realized, oh yeah, okay, right. This person was really at war with themselves, and that's difficult to see. It's difficult to be in the presence of someone like that and just see that taking place. And that it's a tempest in their brain. They're fighting themselves, So it's painful to see that, and that's sort of what brought that quote about.
I just thought, isn't it a necessary step in a man's life to be at some point at war with himself then?
For sure. I think definitely. Especially it's less of a binary in the sense that at any one point, of course the quote makes it sound binary, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's quite fluid. There's a percentage at which you're at war with yourself, and there's a percentage at which you're at war with some kind of enemy or with your purpose, right?
Yeah.
And I think one way to look at it as well is you can specify your enemy, you can specify your target of who to be at war with as yourself, or as a version of yourself who you're trying to kill, right? So perhaps there's a version of you that you do not want to be like, and you're trying to get rid of, this is, how some people get rid of their bad habits, certain things that they want to kick, right? They don't identify with those things anymore, right? They can take those, separate them from their identity, and say, no, that's my old self, right? Current me does this, right? So that's one way to also look at the quote, which is an interesting way to flip it on its head, which is you can make the enemy yourself, but a version of you, not yourself in like a general, in a broader sense, or even in an ego sense, but just you can make it a version of you that you want to kill, right? So
amazing. I just want to go back to how you said giving a man a purpose will just fulfill his life. There's this quote I heard, which is, give a man a purpose and he'll walk on broken glass with a smile on his face. I think it really encapsulates what you've been saying. Amazing, man.
Yeah.
Thank you for your comment there. Second quote, you can have everything that you want on the condition that you have the discipline to want one thing at a time.
Yeah. So this one is a huge one for me, and it's about prioritization. It's about being able to actually calm your instant gratification brain from wanting everything all at once. So there's another quote that is sort of more of an aphorism that gets thrown around, which is you can have anything, but you can't have everything. You know, that's sort of another way to put the same idea across, which is if you're not careful, you can let your brain pull you in so many different directions that you will not have the necessary force required to get you what you want along even just one of those axes of your life, right? I've suffered from this all of my life, which is I'll be doing 6 things at once, and I want to do all of them exceptionally. So I would be competing in jiu-jitsu competitions, trying to win the entire tournament. But at the same time, while I'm training for that jiu-jitsu competition, I'm taking up some extra projects in school to get a better grade, because I want to be the best at that too. And then I'll also be taking up some leadership position somewhere else, trying to do some other thing. So I'd have 5 or 6 different things going on, and I wanted to be the best boyfriend and the best jiu-jitsu athlete and the best student and the best business person and the best crypto trader on the side. And I had all these different things going on, right? So it took me so long to clock that, fine, okay, maybe you could do all of these things good. And perhaps even relative to other people, you could do them really well, like maybe 5 things, but you could never do them exceptionally, or at least to the degree that you would be able to achieve something along that dimension if you just picked it and did that with all of your energy, right? And then a season later, you move on to the next thing. So, I mean, I like this idea of seasons quite a bit, of perhaps now for me, right? Perhaps now is the season of business, right? The season of Chris, the business guy, right? It can't be Chris the business guy and Chris the jiu-jitsu. Okay, Chris the business guy for now, right? Maybe for the next 5 years, let's say. And then it might be Chris the father, right? Perhaps in 5 years, 5 to 6 years time, perhaps I want to actually start that chapter of my life. So then that will be the thing that I'm optimizing for. I'll be optimizing for being the best father. Now that's going to come at the cost, perhaps, of me being the best business owner. I won't be the most ferocious guy on the block anymore, right? There are going to be some young, hungry, up-and-coming dudes who are going to have the drive and the hunger to probably eat me for breakfast because I'm over here playing with my kid, right? But that's a trade-off that I have to be willing to accept, right? Because again, I'm only wanting one thing at a time. I want to be, right now, the absolute hungriest business person alive, right? I'm competing in that sphere. And that's the one thing that I want right now. And I'm willing to sacrifice other things for that. I'm willing to sacrifice being the best jiu-jitsu athlete. I'm willing to sacrifice being the best boyfriend. I'm willing to sacrifice being the best friend to some of my friends and all of these things, right? So that's sort of the general idea, which is it all comes down to prioritization. And having that discipline, and it really is discipline to want one thing at a time.
I just want to make a clarification for those that are wondering. Chris isn't also saying to completely block out all the rest. Obviously, as we say, it's a question of balance. Obviously, you're going to prioritize, for Chris, for example, business the most. But all the other aspects of your life are still going to have to be lingering around. And obviously, you're still going to have some focus. But your maximum focus should be directed one thing at a time. And completely agree.
I think what I'm saying, definitely, is that you're going to have to just decide what are the sacrifices that you
That's-
are willing to make.
yeah. And do you think the decision is harder than the actually focusing on one thing at a time?
I think it's because those two things are linked. The decision is something you have to make every day. That's the problem. It's like you don't just get to decide what you're prioritizing for and then everything falls into place. You have to keep freaking deciding it every day.
So micro decisions coming behind it.
Micro decisions, exactly. Because every time things come up that want to pull you in a different direction, you still keep having to say no, right? To things. And again, it's like you're just gonna have to decide how much you're willing to sacrifice for it. But I think for me, just don't complain, right? Let's say look, if I want to be the ultimate, if I want to be really good at business, right? And I'm not really succeeding compared to this other person who's doing better than me. And if I audit our lives, I literally just take my entire life and I audit how I spend my time. And this guy's spending way more time and effort and intelligent time on his business than I am. I can't sit here and complain, right? Because I chose to know I have other priorities as well. You know, I have this other thing that I care about. I have 2 or 3 other things that I'm doing. And I'm choosing to prioritize those things too, right? So it's like if you're not seeing success along the one dimension that you really care about, then okay, but just don't complain about it, right? Because you have chosen the set of sacrifices that you have been willing to make. And perhaps there's someone out there who is willing to make more sacrifices than you, and that's why he's winning, right? Because I think this goes back to another idea which we might hit later on, which is that people want things. And they're very keen and willing to say that they want something, but they're not willing to then make the associated sacrifice to have that thing, right? It's like if the actions to get the thing are like, think about it as a price tag that you have to pay to get the thing, right? People are so willing to say that they want the thing. But if you're going to say that, you have to then also be willing to make the sacrifice that is necessary to get that thing. And that's where people, I think, struggle, right? And so
No, completely. Yeah. That's great, and it's exactly it's the next quote anyway, so you can jump into it. You say you want it. What will you sacrifice for it? The universe does not reward vaguely expressed desires. If you aren't prepared to put everything on the line, then know that 1, somebody else is. 2, you're better off not lying to yourself and others about wanting it.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite ways to think about this. Because if I'm really going to say that I want something, what backs that up? It has to be my actions, right? It has to be, well, I have to be prepared to give up something that the next guy isn't giving up. I have to be prepared to do that if I want the thing. Otherwise, he's going to get the thing, right? The person who can lay the most on the line, and again, you know, we're speaking quite generally here, but the person who's willing to lay the most on the line and do that intelligently is going to get the thing, right? And especially for business, for us to ignore that it's, you know, there's competition and that it is a landscape that's like that, then yeah, it really does come down to what you're willing to sacrifice for it. And if you're not, then yeah, you really are better off not trying to fool yourself and other people into saying and thinking that you want this thing. Right? Because other people are going to hold you accountable to that, first of all. And you will betray yourself if you say that you want something and then you don't do it and you don't get the thing. Right? Your internal scoreboard with yourself, your reputation of how much you can trust yourself goes down. Because you have now failed to follow through on something. So you now start to build up the reputation in your own brain as someone who says they want something and doesn't follow through. You build that feedback loop enough times in your brain, right? If that pattern of neurons fires enough times in your freaking brain, you can't trust yourself anymore. You don't actually even see yourself as the guy who can get shit done, right? So you're genuinely better off not even saying it, that you want the thing. Because the moment you say it, you have to fucking make the sacrifices.
Are you saying this from past experience?
Well, I think there's definitely been loads of times that I've said to myself, I mean, I can just look at myself in business when I first started, right? I remember saying, yeah, so I want to hit my first $10,000 a month, da 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 da, and I couldn't even go to bed and wake up at the same time. That was me. That was my life, right? And I remember I remember once thinking, Chris, if you're supposed to sit and convince somebody to work with you, if that person looked at how you actually spend your time and what time you go to bed and what time you wake up, and that you can't even wake up at the same time every day, would they still want to work with you? And I thought, wow. I looked at it that way and I thought, I wouldn't want to work with me. I'm an idiot. I'm just a fool. So when I thought about it like that, I thought, fuck, I'm over here saying that I want all of these things, but look at my actions. My actions are just not in line with that at all. I say I want this thing, and then I go out on the weekend and party with my friends. Mm. Okay, so I clocked, okay, Chris, if you're gonna say that you want something, if an external observer came in and audited your life, they should be able to tell. They should at least be able to tell that, oh yeah, no, this guy looks like he wants the thing. But if they look at your life, if an external observer had to come in and audit your life and see how you spend your time, if they can't tell that you want the thing, something's fucked up. Something's fucked up, right? Yeah.
No, I completely agree. I realized this for myself recently, I'd say 2 or 3 months ago, where I realized that often when I say what I'm about to do, or this event, oh yeah, I'm going to be speaking there, blah, 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 I realized that the chances or the odds of it not happening are weirdly higher, which I found very interesting. And apparently you do get a quick boost in dopamine just in the fact of actually just saying it, because you make yourself feel good, so you make your family feel good, oh, I'm proud he's going to do this, or when actually, as I said, usually just in rare cases doesn't happen, and then you're just stuck there, you're like, oh, or you just don't do it. So now and it's hard, honestly, it's really hard. I've got to fight the urge of saying, oh yeah, I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that. Actions over words. And every time I see myself slipping, I'm Jared, don't say it, just do it. Just do it. And worst case, it doesn't happen, nobody knows, and that's fine. And it's not a question of non-authenticity. We're not lying and like, I'm not going to do it and then doing it. It's more about doing it. And once you've actually accomplished what you've done, you can go out and say it.
Yep.
So yeah, no,
I agree.
I completely agree. I completely agree with that too,
I think
man.
the only caveat that I would add to that is sometimes speaking it into existence, speaking it before you do it, can help to hold you accountable to it. Again,
that is also very true. That's interesting. Yeah. Please go ahead. I have something to say there.
It's a tricky line to thread.
Yeah.
Where you have to say it either to people who you know are going to hold you accountable, and you have to say it in a way that is a statement of fact and just matter of factly, this is what's going to happen, full stop, and I'm going to make sure it happens. I remember this sort of happened with me and one of my friends. I told him straight up, I said, my business is going to be doing this by the end of the year. I'm telling you this because it's going to happen. I'm speaking it now into existence. This is going to happen. And why is because I know how much this guy respects me and how much I respect him. And so if by the end of the year he's like, hey, so how's it going? And if I have bad news for this guy, it's over. Yeah. So in my head, I'm like, fuck, now I actually have to do it. There's no choice, So that's the only caveat that I add to that.
Sonny, the guy that actually said this to me was Sam Harbon when I interviewed him in, I can't remember when it was. I think it was February. Anyway, he said that he'd announce something on his YouTube channel, and then he'd be obviously accountable in front of all of his followers to actually do it. And I sometimes do it on the channel, like, oh, the newsletter's starting, blah, 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 so then I've got to do it. So yeah, again, as you said, I guess it's a fine line. You've got, it's balance. I feel like we're going to say this for every quote and lesson. It's all about balance. And it really depends on your circumstances and where you're in life. But yeah, as you said, it's very well. It's all about balance. Amazing. Next one is gratitude is a skill, not a trait.
Yeah. So this is I think a huge one for me that I learned, that I had to learn 2 years ago. I think it's easy for us to think of gratitude as something that has to come at us and not from us, right? It's something that, oh yeah, something external is going to happen to me, and then gratitude is I'm going to be washed over with that feeling. But it doesn't come from me, it comes from the external circumstances. And so, by gratitude is a skill and not a trait. A trait, perhaps, is something that... A trait, you have it and it can't be built up, right? That's the difference between a skill and a trait. A skill is something that you are intentional about and that comes from you and that you can get better at over time. And a trait is something that is just innate to you and is either active or inactive, and it's not in your control. There's no agency involved, right? So I think the reframe for me was realizing that gratitude is something that's a matter of agency. It's a matter of choosing. It's a voluntary exercise, right? It's not something that, again, just washes over you because of external circumstances and, yeah, I'm just a grateful person, or I'm just not a grateful person. That doesn't fly, right? So one example that I use for this is, if you are horrible at tennis, right? If you've never played tennis before in your life, okay, and I just throw endless tennis balls at you, you will swing and miss those balls forever, for all of eternity, right? It doesn't matter how many tennis balls I throw at you, if you don't know how to swing the racket and hit the ball, you will just keep missing, right? So in the same way, if you're not trained, if you don't have the kind of mind that you have trained to be grateful when things happen, endless positive things could happen to you, and you would swing and miss for all of frickin' eternity, right? Because you have not trained that skill of being able to be grateful in those moments. So I think the problem with gratitude is people, again, they see it as something external has to happen to me. A good thing, a tennis ball has to come my way, right? And then I'm just going to be hit by that tennis ball. I'm just going to be grateful, right? Whereas, again, if you've not trained your mind, I can send so many positive things your way, and you're not going to feel that feeling. It's to be located here and now. It's something that you can train, right? It's something that I can sit and think, all right, cool, what am I grateful for today? And then I have to now generate something that I'm grateful for, right? It has to come, it comes from me, right? It's not something happens to me and, okay, now I'm finally struck with the gratefulness, the lightning bolt of gratitude, right? So I don't happen to think that it works that way. I think it has to come... It has to be a skill. It's something that you trained. It's like being able to hit a tennis ball, so that now when good things happen to you, you know how to swing the racket. You know actually how to get to those balls, right? And I mean, if anyone can inspect their lives, or inspect even the lives of people close to them, you'll see countless good things happening to yourself and to the people around you that you don't even pick up. You don't pick up on them at all, right? So that's what I mean by the tennis ball example, right? There's probably, and me included, there's probably 10 things, Jared, that have happened to you and I since we woke up that are actually really positive that we just didn't clock. Do you know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, I think, as you said, I think we all innately feel gratitude, but we don't, as you said, pick up on it. And it's about voicing it and feeling grateful in that moment. And yeah, clearly it has to be practiced. You can't just expect... do you think there's cases of people that actually just don't train this skill and they're just automatically, grateful about everything? No. Like they're just innately happy and always, grateful, and they're just like, yeah.
Well, I think some people get there through training, right? Without training, I don't know. Perhaps there are some people with that kind of neurochemistry where
Yeah, maybe
they're
some people
just
are just predispositions, from birth, neuropsychologically to
Well,
feel
in
more
fact, there are
grateful.
people who have manic disorder, meaning they're just constantly happy. They actually can't function properly, right?
Okay.
They routinely, and I don't know, maybe someone needs to check me on this, right? Don't take this as fact, but I hear interesting things where people with manic disorder, they need to actually be on some kind of medication to bring their fear senses up, because they might just walk into oncoming traffic. They're just constantly happy and everything is constantly great, and there is no sense of maybe this isn't a good idea, maybe this is dangerous, maybe this is bad, maybe I should be worried, maybe I should be careful. There's none of that. It's just constantly everything is great all the time, always. And those people, low key, they can't actually function as normal human beings. They need to be protected and they need to be on medication so that they can be aware of danger, that they can be aware of be actually fearful of the correct
So
things.
they're never sad or disappointed or fearful. They're just always in this constant
No.
state of
Yeah.
yeah.
And so someone like that can't actually function in the real world. You actually need to be calibrated in a way that you can be hesitant and fearful, and there's some degree of that anxiety that actually has to be there for you to survive, right? If not, again, you can think about this evolutionarily as well. If we evolved without this, all the humans that didn't have this calibrated well enough might have heard a bush rustling, but they didn't care and they just walked in there and they got eaten by a lion, right? Because they didn't have that fear. They didn't have that, yo, that's potentially a lion. Maybe we should get out of here right now. Yeah. So evolutionarily, you can see how this has been selected for as well. But going back to the gratitude point, it most certainly is a skill, right? And in fact, there are people who train the opposite skill, the skill of ingratitude, finding things to complain about. Right? Have you ever sat down with a person and you go, how's your day? And they go, oh, well, it's so hot and today I'm feeling so tired. And they're so skilled at finding things to complain about, right? So sometimes I sit and I think, imagine if you were as skilled at this as being grateful. If you were just as skillful as you were at finding things to complain about, for actually finding things to be grateful for, wouldn't your sense of well-being be just that much more?
Wait, so I'm trying to think. Why would someone train to be then ungrateful then and just complain all the time, just to have the contrast, or just for fun
No,
fun experiment?
I think when I say people have developed that skill, I mean
Yeah.
unconscious.
Oh, okay.
Not,
I thought you were saying people actually train that skill. Like, today I'm just gonna complain and be ungrateful as fuck. I hate you. This day's shit. Okay, no, yeah. Just for some people, okay.
They've unconsciously, their minds have just been so used to finding things to complain about, right? Oh, well, today I woke up late and I feel a little bit lethargic, and I drank a coffee and it didn't even hit me, and I walked all the way over here and it's just so hot and I'm already sweating, and they have all these things. They're so close to their brain that they can just immediately complain about, because their brain, they've trained those pathways so many times, right? To find something to be ungrateful for and to just complain about. Something's wrong, problem seeking, I think it's so common for our minds to just tend towards finding the problem. Like, imagine if you walked into a room right now. Let's just say I spent 10 hours cleaning a room that you were about to walk into so that it can be spotless, perfectly spotless, not a single piece of dust, right? I spent 10 hours cleaning this room. And then there's one brown spot smack in the middle of this white carpet. There's this brown spot, right? But everything else is spotless. What are you going to do? You're going to walk into the room. You're immediately going to see the brown spot. Nothing else. It doesn't matter that everything else is pristine. All you're going to see is that one brown spot and be like, bro, you had 10 hours and you missed that. Right? So your brain is trained to seek the problems and the issues, right? It's not going to look at everything else that's perfect. Everything else that's good. It's hard to be good.
Yeah, to spot out what's stands out.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yes.
That is interesting. I've got a good one to follow up that. When your mind is weak, everything looks like a problem. When your mind is strong, everything looks like an opportunity. You may not be able to escape your subjectivity, but you sure as hell can make it work for you instead of against you.
Yeah, I notice that when I'm in a strong period of my life, when anything happens to me, I take the most favorable interpretation of that event that strengthens me instead of weakens me, right? So again, this is pure subjectivity, right? It's just how I choose to interpret this sensation or this happening to me. It's pure subjectivity. So you might not be able to escape that, but you can use that to your advantage, right? So for instance, let's say that you have a family member that you need to be around every day or every week, perhaps, right? Let's say every day you need to be around this family member, and maybe they are, for one reason or another, just really on your case about something. They just, every time you're there, they feel like they have to jab you with some sort of insult, some sort of, whatever. But you're forced to see this person, perhaps you live with them, right? And you're forced to just be jabbed. Or maybe it's a coworker that always finds something to pick on you for, right? So that's the stimulus. Between the stimulus and your response to that stimulus, there's a space, right? There's a space through which your subjectivity can choose a response, right? This is a famous Viktor Frankl quote. Viktor Frankl, who wrote Man's Search for Meaning. It's between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space lies the power to choose our response. And in that choice lies our freedom, right? That's that whole Viktor Frankl quote. And so your subjectivity determines the response. So, for instance, this person says something nasty to you, this coworker that every day picks on you, or this family member every day picks on you. You can take that stimulus and go, okay, cool. This is an opportunity for me to practice a virtue, right? Perhaps to practice patience, right? I've been wanting to be a more patient person. Cool. Every day now, I get to practice that. When this person says this thing to me, I get to see how I feel about that and see how fast I can reframe this and practice that patience, right? You can use it as an opportunity. Versus when your mind is weak, right? When you're in a weak state of mind, everything it's a problem, right? It's, this person again, they're going to say this thing to me, and right? Or this business issue is going to come up, right? For me now, when I face a business problem, I'm like, fuck yes, I get to learn something. Okay, something went wrong, dope. The moment I solve it, I've just bridged a gap of ignorance that is now no longer there. So I feel on top of the world, right? Everything is an opportunity.
Failure is an opportunity for learning.
Yeah. So there's not one stimulus that can attack me when my mind is strong. There's not one stimulus that I can be hit with that I'm gonna go, oh, poor me. No, it's not gonna happen, right? There's not a single thing. Something screwed up could happen to me, right? And I'll just be like, all right, bet. Where is the opportunity in this? What can I take from this? It's gonna make me stronger somehow. So I'm half Chinese, okay. Right? And so in Chinese, the word for opportunity, the word for crisis, right, is actually a very interesting word. It also doubles as opportunity in Chinese.
What's the word? So can you say the word?
Crisis is wei ji.
Okay.
So wei, it's wei ji. My bad. Been a while. I haven't activated those circuits in a while. So wei ji. So the wei in wei ji is two words. The wei is danger. The wei stands for danger, and ji is from ji hui, which stands for chance, opportunity. Okay, so crisis is danger and opportunity in Chinese.
It's brilliant.
Yeah, it's brilliant. So what they're trying to say is that in every crisis, there's always an opportunity. And so you have to just find that.
Brilliant. Amazing. Wow, that was my favorite one so far. I like the whole Chinese word. That was amazing. Change only occurs when you're convinced that the pain of inaction is greater than the pain of wrong action.
Yeah. So I grew up in a society that I grew up in a first world country, Singapore, and it's predominantly Asian. And so most people grow up very risk averse in Singapore, meaning always try to do the right thing. Just don't make mistakes is the entire premise. It's not about playing to win, it's about playing not to lose. Right? There's a difference there. If you're playing a game of poker and you're down a lot and you're just trying not to lose what you have left, you make very different bets than if you're playing to win. Right? And so in Singapore, it's very risk averse. A lot of the culture is about let's play not to lose. So people are very concerned with taking wrong actions, genuinely. It is the one thing that is not permissible. So you don't have to do anything all that right, you just have to not fuck up all that bad. And people won't be on your case so much. So I think in school, at least, we're always taught that there's one right answer. Take mathematics, right? In math, there's really just one right answer. It's a convergent solution. Everything that you could possibly do, every sum, every formula, it's all supposed to converge on a number. A single number is the right answer.
Well, there's exceptions, but I see what you...
With exceptions to that, yes, of course.
Obviously,
You get into complex stuff, there's multiple exceptions. But, for simple purposes, it's a number. There's a number, that's the answer, okay?
Yeah.
But I think we look at that, and I think Hormozy made a good case about this. He said, people see that in school, that there's only one right answer, and they think that that's what real life is like, that there's only one right answer. But really, the truth is that there are multiple right answers, and there are multiple ways to do things, and the only wrong action that you could really take is inaction. It's doing nothing, right? And so change really does only occur when you realize, hang on, I want to change my situation, and the only thing that's wrong about this is the fact that I'm not doing anything to change it. Anything is better than this inaction, right? And so when you compute the cost to you of wrong action and inaction, only when you compute that sum and you realize that the cost of inaction is way greater than the cost of wrong action, then you can take all the wrong actions all day. You'd be like, fuck it, I'm just gonna try. And if it works, if it doesn't work, I'll learn something. If it works, great, but it's better than doing nothing. That's, I think, when you take action. At least for me, that's what I
completely. Yeah, as you said, a lot of people are scared of failure, and then they don't realize that inaction is going to guarantee their failure. If you don't try, well, there's no succeeding. Is indecisiveness a big thing then in Singapore?
I think yes, but the unique thing about Singapore is that the indecisiveness is made up for by other people making the decision for you.
Okay. Can you dive deep into that?
So I'll dive into that really quickly. So if you asked the average Singaporean person what they want, they genuinely could not tell you. Now, they can tell you what they've been told to want.
Okay.
What their parents want them to want, what the government wants them to want, what authority has taught them to want. But if you go, no, yeah, okay, cool, fine. Yeah, what do you want, though? What do you actually care about? A lot of people actually couldn't tell you.
Wow.
Because it's not something that they've sat and thought about, genuinely. A lot of people have had their lives planned out for them before they were even born. Right? There are a lot of people who walk around in Singapore who, they've gone, well, okay, so why did you go to this school? Why not another school? Well, my parents said that this would be the better school. Okay, cool. So why did you end up studying, why'd you study medicine? Like, I'm assuming, some people have cool answers, right? They're like, yeah, I want to be this kind of surgeon, and I really care about... They're like, well, my dad was a doctor, they said it would be good, and it's prestigious, people would, look up to me if I was a doctor, and, some people have really had their whole lives charted out, right, for them. So they might be indecisive themselves, but it's made up for by the fact that they don't really make a lot of decisions for their own life.
So it's not indecisiveness, it's just lack of decision.
Yes. And so if you really sat them down and pressed them and asked, and I've done this, right, because I live here, and I happen to care about these things, and I spent 3 years in university. I asked anyone I could possibly ask, hey, so why are you studying what you're studying? I'm curious. Tell me, right? And I'll just dig a little bit, and I would always, not always, fine, most of the time find that it wasn't their own agency that landed them the decision. It was authority approves of this, and that's why I'm doing it. It's an instruction that has been passed down from someone to me, and I'm simply carrying that instruction out, right? And so if you come to Singapore, you'll find that the average Singaporean loves our government. They love it.
Okay.
They don't actually really feel the same impulse that a Western person would feel to question their government. Hardly at all. Hardly. It's, well, what did the government say? Okay, cool, I'll do that. Like that is the genuine sentiment here, right? Because it's a authority, it's a top-down, hey, look, here's what's best, do this. And the people go, okay, cool. If I do this, I'll be safe, I'll be taken care of. Dope, I'll do it. Right, so, yeah.
Yeah, the reason I ask is because and if my friend listens to this podcast or this episode, he'll recognize himself. I've got this friend that is easily indecisive. Like when it comes to take a decision, where do you want to eat, or are you going to cut your hair now, or going to go there? He just takes so much time to make a decision, and often we have to make the decision for him. So usually, like if it's just three of us, me and my other friend will say this, then you'll be out, then I'll do this. So he's very indecisive, and I dig deeper in it recently, and it sort of ties back to one of your videos, which is, I think it's all about indecisiveness. I think the thumbnail is entrepreneurship. I think it's one of your recent ones. And I realized indecisiveness is basically ties back to the fear of regret, because you just want such a perfect life that you are so scared to take a decision that you fear that might be the wrong one and that you'll regret it. So it's all about regret. And I thought about it. I was like, yeah, he wanted to cut his hair, and he wasn't sure if he wanted to do it because it sort of makes out plans. And then I could clearly see that he wanted to do it because if he didn't do it, he would regret it. But if he didn't, then if he did do it, it would mix up our plans, and then he'd have to go home by himself anyway. It was a whole thing. I just find it so interesting because you just ultimately it just keeps you stuck. Because taking even the smallest of actions today is the key to moving forward and finding success in every realm of your life. It's all about, and I'm a very, very decisive guy. Like when you ask me, do you want to do this? Okay, obviously I'm not doing that without thinking. Obviously a thought process goes pretty quickly, and I can very easily just say, yeah, we're going to do that. And sometimes I'm wrong. Fine. At least we're moving somewhere, If we're not moving somewhere, we're just going to stay stuck in the same spot for hours and hours. Obviously, I'm exaggerating the whole thing so people can understand. But anyway, yeah, so I just wanted to see your thoughts on that, and then if you could comment about your recent video.
Yeah,
the thought pattern.
I think it is definitely a fear of regret thing. But it's because people have this wrong intuition that somehow we're able to split test life. Like you can't split test life, right? So you have to just move forward, right? There is never going to be a case where you could do something and then you would be able to see into a parallel universe where you did the other thing and see how well you do. You can't see that. You'll never have some clairvoyance to. So that split test is never going to happen. You're never going to be able to see. So it doesn't matter, But you have this impulse in your head that, no, but this other thing could have gone better. Well, how do you know that? You can't split test it, right? So it doesn't matter. And being able to again bring it back to agency of, okay, I have to trust myself to make a decision. And I think I always come back to wanting to trust myself with that. If I just let other people make decisions for me, one, I'm going to be living a life that I don't even know is mine, right? And two, I'm not going to be able to trust my own decision-making faculties, because if you think about it like a muscle, it's like you've never trained that muscle. So imagine all your life, right? You've not ever lifted a weight, and then someone says, okay, now you need to make a big decision for your life. They throw you under a 100-kilo bench, and you're supposed to now bench 100 kilos. You've never lifted a weight in your life, right? So it's the same thing. How can you expect to make any kind of reasonable decision for your life if you've not trained that muscle? If your decision-making faculties have atrophied, or you've not even built them up at all, right? So I always think about it that way. I need to be able to trust myself to make good decisions. And the only way to get there is by making all the decisions I possibly can by myself. And in so doing, obviously making loads of mistakes.
Yeah, but then you learn from them.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying,
And
yeah. I like the way you said then that the more you do it, it's like a muscle and it becomes more and more precise. The more and more you're going to have, and you're going to confront a similar problem or similar decision you have to take a year or two from now, and as you did it back then, and you can learn from all the mistakes and all the right doings you've done through the decisions you've made in the past, you can sort of calibrate more and more precisely that, say, gun of decision, and throughout time it's just going to be more and more precise, and you're going to make the right answers and the right decisions more and more often.
Yeah. But see, that's what people who are indecisive are lacking. They lack the trust in themselves.
You think it's deep down a lack of, trust in themselves?
Yeah. It's if you think about that gun of decision making, they're not used to being put behind that scope. They're not confident that they can hit the target, so they want somebody else to do it. You decide. Right? Because you put them behind the scope. They don't trust that they can do it. And the only way to trust that you can make a decision is by bloody making some, and then seeing how it goes and going, you know what? This actually wasn't so bad. And I still kind of like my life. Yeah. So maybe I can be behind the gun. Maybe it's not going to be so bad, right?
And in worst case, you miss the target. Who cares, right? Next time you have to go slightly onto the left. That's it.
Yeah. There you go.
Amazing. Honesty may feel risky, but it's the only way to build real connections and truly live with intent.
So this is one of the summaries, right, of one of the videos. Yeah. So this isn't a direct quote from me. This is this is one of the summaries.
And feel free to reformulate it if you feel it's not faithful to your video.
Yeah. So honesty with other people builds real connections with them, right? Honesty with yourself before even being honest or being truthful with other people, I think, is what allows you to be sure that you can be honest with other people, is first being able to be honest with yourself. I think there are many cases in which to lie to another person, you first have to actually lie to yourself about what's going on, right? And then your brain allows you to sort of lie to other people. And when you build up a reputation, okay, simple. If you meet a friend and you've known this friend for a few years and you know that when shit really goes down to the wire, you can't really trust him. He's gonna be flaky in some way, or he's going to try to say something to cover up his reputation, whatever, right? You might like him as a friend, you might want to hang out with him every now and then, but deep down, his reputation with you, the amount that you can actually feel connected to this person is probably quite diminished. You're like, I can't really trust him. Now, if you have that same problem with yourself, right, you are the only person whom you are guaranteed to spend the rest of your life with. Guaranteed. Right? You're the only person in the world. So imagine your internal scorecard, your internal reputation with yourself is bad. And when shit gets down to the wire, you're like, nah, bro, you
can't even trust yourself, yeah.
You can't even trust yourself. You don't even know what is going on because in previous times you've tried to distort reality and lie your way out of things, right? To the point where one day if you really need to figure out what's going on, you can't even trust that you can discern what reality itself is because of how often you are distorting it. Right? So I think you can't have a real connection with yourself and trust yourself if you are dishonest. And if you're dishonest to other people, then humans are very well socially calibrated to these things. They won't feel like they can connect with you. And I think one of the quotes that I love from Mark Twain, well, Mark Twain isn't actually a real person. His real name is Samuel Clemens. But one Mark Twain quote is...
Who's Mark Twain? I feel like I've heard it before.
He's this sort of author that but it's actually a character. Mark Twain is a character.
Okay.
The real guy's name is Samuel Clemens.
Okay.
But there's this sort of thing where a lot of quotes get attributed to Mark Twain.
Okay.
It's one of those things, and so the quote is, "The best part about telling the truth is that I don't have to remember what I said."
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is honestly, it's energy conservation. I love that frame, which is telling the truth is really just energy conservation. Dude, if you ask me what happened and I just tell you the truth, the next time someone else asks me, I'm like, I don't have to count. Well, what did I tell this person? So what did I tell him? Now what do I tell her? Okay, I have to make sure that the stories line up because maybe they're going to talk to each other. I get to save on all of that energy by just telling the truth. I don't have to remember anything I said.
That's so true. Yeah, and it's especially with women, they've got this sense of, they're way more emotionally and socially smart, intelligent, and you just can't build a real connection with a woman. I mean, unless obviously you're gay or whatever, but in this case, you just can't build a real and worthwhile connection with your girlfriend or wife because, as you said, it's just unauthentic, and honesty is key. And I had this long conversation with Ibrahim Turner about authenticity and how without authenticity you just can't live again with intent, and you're just lying to yourself, and that's just miserable, honestly. Because people are like, yeah, but you're lying to others. Yeah, but you're lying to yourself. That's like 10 times worse.
Yeah.
How can you live with yourself knowing that you just, as you said, sort of like deforming your own positions and your own world and your own thoughts? You can't even trust yourself, and that's dark and very, very dangerous place to be.
Yeah, because again, you're the only person you have to count on, really.
Yeah.
That you have to count on for the rest of your life. So if you can't trust yourself, if you put yourself in that situation now, you have actually screwed yourself. Like, you really have. Because again, with all the times that you have taken reality and tried to twist it into something else and gone, no, this is real. No, this is real. No, this is real. You can't even discern that anymore, right? So that's a dangerous place to put yourself in because, you have yourself for the rest of your life. That's it, right? Yeah. Guaranteed.
You're born and you die alone.
Yeah.
Personal growth and meaningful relationships are not mutually exclusive. Both can be cultivated simultaneously, and real-life experiences with others often enrich our journey of self-improvement. Again, no quote of Chris, formulated from one of his past episodes. I think it was about episodes. I keep calling YouTube videos episodes now. I think it was about 8 or 9 months ago.
Yeah. So I think this was probably taken from a video that I titled "Deconstructing the I'm not where I want to be yet" cope. Right. So I think people use this phrase, oh well, I'm not where I want to be yet, to justify, perhaps not doing something. Like perhaps there's a relationship that they want to end because I shouldn't be in a relationship with a girl because I'm not where I want to be yet in life, and so I need to get there first. I need to become this supreme alpha male Adonis guy who has everything sorted out. And then, then magically I'm going to meet this beautiful feminine woman and everything's finally going to work out and it's going to be amazing. It's going to be a fairy tale. Like, that's kind of what goes on in the brain of some people, where they go, no, I need to, work on myself. I'm not where I want to be at, etc. So I think that's where that line comes from of, well, personal growth and meaningful relationships are not mutually exclusive, which I think is completely true, and they can feed into one another, right? That's another huge thing, where the person that you're with, let's say in a relationship, if you are doing a relationship, in my opinion, the right way, your goals are their goals and their goals are your goals, right? You guys are together, right? So if I'm with someone, I'm like, okay, so your goals are my goals and my goals are your goals now. So how can we best support each other to achieve those things, right? What's important to you is now important to me too. So let's work that out. Let's figure that out, right? I'm not here to compete with your goals. And so I think that's really the context under which I think it's important, which is, if you're thinking as a man, okay, if you're as a man, you're thinking you are going to not see or date any women ever until you've ultimately self-actualized and you're just
billionaire and the
the complete self-actualized version of yourself. You're like, I finally arrived.
the enlightened.
And then suddenly a harem of women is gonna appear in front of you, and you're gonna know exactly how to be the best husband of all time. This is delusional, right? This is just a fantasy in your head, right? So you have to recognize that, okay, for you to learn how to treat a woman the right way, how to be a good man in a relationship, how to be a good relationship partner, how to negotiate with your partner, how to do all of those things that come from being in a relationship, you can't learn those things from a book. You can't read some book or read some study from the Gottman Institute and suddenly you're a relationship expert. It doesn't happen that way.
It's through experience,
So, yeah, exactly, right? If I gave you all the swimming theory books in the world, it's not going to help you when I throw you in the ocean, right?
Well, you could use the books as like a raft.
Right. So I think this is sort of directed at some of those men who think, well, yeah, I'm not where I want to be yet, so I'm going to completely postpone any kind of interactions or dating with women, or perhaps there's actually something on the table that could work out, and I'm going to completely push it away for all time because I'm not where I want to be yet. Sometimes you got to think about that a little bit deeper and see, well, perhaps these things aren't mutually exclusive, and perhaps I actually need to develop the skills of being a good relationship partner, and I'm only going to be able to develop those skills by being in a relationship and learning that way.
I think what's interesting in what you said is that the whole "I'm not where I want to be yet" is that it just doesn't exist. You'll never be there, right?
You'll keep shifting the goal.
That's what's absolutely beautiful about self-improvement and just life in general, is that it's a journey. And people often say, and that this is my destination, but once you're there, there's going to be a new goal. And it's often, and sometimes it does, you end up at your destination and then you hop on the next one, but usually it's just so fused that there's never really a start and an end, and then a start and an end. It just starts and then it just ends when you die. So it's all about you see what I mean, because there's goals are going to be, one goal is going to start there, and then this is going to start, and then a new chapter is going to start there. You're going to move there. There's no real start and end of, I am him. You'll never be him. You are him right now. You'll never be him. I hope it makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. As long as your mind, this is a very simple exercise. If you have the kind of mind that you have trained to always be seeking growth and looking for the next problem to solve, you will never be, by definition of the way that you've set your brain up, you will never be in a state of problemless bliss, right? It will never happen because you have set your mind up to, okay, what is the next problem? Where is the next area of our life that we're going to improve? How are we now going to grow? If that's how you set yourself up, you will, again, when you're there, when this set of, let's say, 10 problems that you're trying to solve in your life, once you've solved that set of 10, when you're here and you've solved them, you have that new set of 10 now.
Yeah.
Because you've just emptied the set, okay,
It just
but
fills back
you'll
up.
still,
Yeah.
another fresh set of 10 will fill it up.
Yes,
Because
never
like,
ending.
you have set up your mind to be that bucket of, okay, this bucket, I'm going to fill it with problems, and I'm always going to be filling it with problems. So you, by definition, will never reach the top of the mountain. You'll never reach this peak of problemless bliss and everything is beautiful. Because you have chosen not to set your mind up that way. If you could be like that, you would be like that right now. And that's it. And you would not improve because you would not be seeking anything. You would not be trying to change anything. So yeah, I think it's a very simple, you can notice that about your mind right now, that quality of your mind that you have, and notice that you're going to feel that way later. So it cannot be, all of the joy and satisfaction of life cannot be found in the solving of some problem, because your life is never going to be that instantaneous feeling after solving a problem. Your life is and will always be the continual process of solving problems. And so the quality of your experience has to come from how you actually solve those problems. How grateful and joyous you can be in the process of solving them rather than at that split second when you've solved it, right? Because I think it was Hormozy who said this great quote, which is, you've already achieved things that you said would make you happy. Right? So if you think back to it, there's something that you've already achieved that you said just a year ago or 2 years ago, you said it was going to make you happy. Oh, I just have to get here and then I'll finally be happy. You said it would make you happy, but you're not, right? So what makes you think that the next thing that you're hiding your happiness behind, you're holding your happiness hostage behind that thing, who says it's there? It's a mirage. All these things, they have a mirage-like quality. They will always escape you. It's always going.
You know, there's a great analogy for that, is your pump. You'll never be your pump. Because see, because you see yourself in the mirror, you're like, damn, I'll be like, I want to be like this. And then next year, you're going to look again, you go, oh, wait, I'm bigger. And then you go again, and you're chasing something that you'll never be. It's like seeing, the pump is like a mirror into, you know, like 6 months from now. It's always the future. Yeah. You see your future self, and then you're chasing that, and then you're there in 6 months. You're like, oh wait, and then obviously the window actualizes itself, and you're like, oh, well, this is me again in 6 months. So you're never going to reach it. And I think what's interesting is that a lot of people, to go back to, I'm not ready for a relationship, blah blah blah, I'm not where I want to be. I think a lot of people, the vast majority, know that it's bullshit. Like they know very well. I'm sure there's some delusional ones that really think they're gonna, you know, be there someday. Hopefully they'll form this episode. But most of them are just, you know, they're coping with themselves. They're like, you know, and deep down this for other reasons, which are, I guess, completely valid depending on the, you know, on the person. But stop, again, it goes back to stop lying to yourself. Just, if you're not ready, you're not ready. But you won't ever be ready if you don't confront it at some point and, you know, learn from it.
Yep, completely. Yeah.
Okay, I like this one. Again, and from another video of Chris. Effective speaking isn't just about what you say, but how you say it. Mastery comes from balancing conviction with clarity and turning pauses into powerful moments of connection.
So, humans are we've calibrated how we sense people's speech patterns unconsciously in our brains, in a very fine-tuned way that we don't even realize. So I could say a certain sentence, the same exact sentence, and every time I change my emphasis of certain words, the sentence means a different thing. Okay? So the sentence could be, I didn't say he hit his wife. Okay? I'm gonna now stress different words in the sentence and notice how the meaning changes. I didn't say he hit his wife.
Yeah.
Okay. Next one. I didn't say he hit his wife. Okay. I didn't say he hit his wife. Okay. I didn't say he hit his wife.
Well,
See, the emphasis of the word, every time I change
Yeah.
the word, it means a different thing now.
Yeah. And I've got the same one. It's I didn't eat your sandwich. I didn't eat your sandwich, and etc. So you can do that with everything. Yeah.
Exactly. I didn't eat your sandwich.
What the fuck did you do with it?
What did you do with it? Right? So it's fascinating, but all of this stuff is unconscious, right? It's not something that you consciously think about, but it really influences the way that what you say is experienced, and even the meaning that it strikes another person with. And so this is why great speakers, when you look at people with great oration ability, they can captivate an audience just by the sheer force at which they speak and the emphasis that they put on certain words. The conviction behind their words really drives everything home way more than the actual contents of their speech. And so I think if you want to be a good speaker, it's important to try and prepare what you have to say beforehand so that you can focus more on how you're saying it. On the emotion, exactly. So for example, when I'm writing a YouTube video, this is just my process, but I will write out an entire essay on the topic before I discuss it. So the day before I film a YouTube video, I've already written an entire essay with all the points I want to hit so that it's now fresh in my mind. And then the next day I wake up, I read my essay, I go, right, okay, this is what I'm talking about. I turn on the camera and I speak. That's it, right? Because now all the points that I want to hit are so fresh in my brain. I don't need to think so much about what I'm saying. I can now put all of my attention on how I'm saying it. How am I making the listener feel when I say this thing? I can place all of my attention on that and none of my attention on what word do I want to choose here? How do I want to describe this point? Because I've already nailed that down. Right. So I think that's been a really useful thing for me. And again, if you want to speak well, do all of that preparation beforehand, and you can place much more of your attention on how you're saying it, which I think is really the 80-20 of speaking. Yep.
I read this book recently, Talk Like TED, and this author, I can't remember his name, bless him, he basically he observed, I don't know how many TED Talks, over 100, and basically analyzed the actual content of the speech, and he broke it down into 3 categories, which is ethos, pathos, and logos. So ethos is establishing personal credentials, pathos is inspiring an emotional response, and logos is arguing based on reason and facts, so data, stats, etc. And he came up with this ratio of the place each one should take in your speech. So pathos should be 65% of your speech, which is pure emotion. So as you said, the most important part of your speech is just emotion, connecting with the audience, just touching their hearts, because that's how they're going to be. Because if you just do 100% of logos, so basically just stats and information and facts.
Actually, so the numbers.
So you just start saying graphs and shit. That people are just going to be like, what? And often that's what I see. I'm at uni in the UK, and a lot of people, even back in high school, when they used to do their PowerPoint presentations, it'd be just information and data and it's supposed to be a support. It's not just supposed to be you're already killing your audience, and you're killing him twice as much with the information you're adding onto your PowerPoints. When it should be a support, you should put in images or emotionally connecting with the audience. So 65% is pathos, 25% is ethos, so your credentials, who you are, your story. Well, your story sort of ties back to emotion, and then 10% logos. So you see 10%, that's all the stats, all the little. And I had a conference back in Cologne a year and a half ago, a crypto conference, and I realized that 40% of my speech, speech was just pure data, just pure blah 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 blah, and it still went well. I mean, I still put a lot of emotion in it and stuff, but anyway, I thought it was a good.
Yeah, that's a really good one. That's a split, and I completely agree with that.
Yeah, no, it's completely. Yeah. The cold water does not get warmer if you jump late.
Yeah, I think this really comes back again to indecisiveness. People, there's almost this expectation that the decision is going to get easier later. So perhaps I should put it off. But I think what people, that instinct again that people have, that impulse to think that somehow later you will have more information or more context to decide to do this thing. I think that's a fallacy, that's dangerous to agree to that impulse every single time, because there are a lot of decisions where it's going to be harder for you to make that decision later, not easier, right? So not only is the cold water not going to get warmer, it's probably going to get colder if you jump in late, right? At least in my experience, I think most decisions are actually like that. The best time to actually make the decision is now.
I think the water gets colder.
It actually gets colder, right? It does not get warmer. So if you wanted to start a business or wanted to start doing something with your life that you actually care about, is that going to be an easier decision to make later on? Like, think about that for a second. Do the sum, right? Do the calculus and realize that, okay, in 10 years' time, I might have kids, I might have more financial liabilities, I might not be in a position where I'm able to take as much risk as I am now. So I think in a lot of these cases, when you look at the decision, it actually gets harder for you to do it later and not easier. And so this is just a nice little reframe that I like, that defeats that impulse that we have of trying to put decisions off, trying to put them off to later, because we somehow think that we're going to have more context and more information later to make the decision, and we're going to feel more comfortable with doing it later. Like, no, it's still going to be uncomfortable later. It's going to be just as uncomfortable as it is right now.
If not
just
more.
fucking do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's one of the core pillars of procrastination. People just tend to, push it back because they just think it's going to get easier later, or they know it's going to stay the same temperature and they still push it away. It's just, there's this quote, I can't remember, you correct me because I feel like it's a very well-known one. When it feels scary to jump, it's the exact moment you gotta jump. I think it's something that goes like that. I'm also butchered it a bit, but yeah, it's...
No, but I know the one you're referring to. Yeah. It's exactly when you're most afraid to jump that you have to jump.
Exactly, yeah. Amazing.
Completely.
Don't eat with people you wouldn't starve with. Well, it's a very obvious one.
Yeah. So this is really about loyalty. Yeah. And I realize that with the people that I spend the most time with right now, which are the people that I work with in my business, I would starve with these people. And so it doesn't matter how good life gets. If I lost everything, I want to know that the people around me would still be there. Yeah. So, and that is a difficult bar to set in your life for people that you make connections with. Would this person starve with me? If I lost everything, would my girlfriend still be here? Like, oof. That's a tough bar to set, but a necessary one, I think. Okay, right? At least for me. I would want to know if I got with a girl, if we got together, right? If I lost everything that I have right now, I would want to know that she'd still be there. That she would, sleep under a bridge with me or whatever, or ride the bus with me, whatever, right?
Ride or die.
Versus, riding the bus versus riding in a Ferrari, same, she would still be there, right? So, and so that really comes back down to loyalty. And I think loyalty really, it's something that it cannot be bought. It cannot be bought and sold. There's something about it that deeply appeals to, at least I think, the male mind. We have just this, I spent 2 years in the army, right? So the bond that I feel with the guys that I went through that stuff with is so deep just because of how much we went through. And it's actually quite interesting, the neurochemistry behind this, with the whole, when you go through a difficult situation with someone, the way that the male endocrine system is set up, someone can fact check me on this, but there's more of a vasopressin release than oxytocin or any of these other things. And so that vasopressin release that you experience and that other man experiences gives you this bond, this like brotherhood bond. We're now much closer brothers because we went through something horrible together. And so with all my army friends, I might not only see them once a year or once every 2 years. We might not ever talk, but I would go to war with these guys. I would die for them. You know what I mean?
Literally.
Like, I feel that, viscerally. It's like, these are my boys, So, yeah, there's something about that cannot be just bought and sold.
Amazing. And when did this quote come around in your life then? Did it come when you actually felt disloyalty from a friend, or did it just pop up naturally?
I think it did come up when one of my friends backed me on something. I think we were out. We almost got into a scuffle. There was just something going on. Some guys that took some issue with us, and I just remember seeing one of my friends just completely be 10 toes down, just there, right? And in those high pressure situations, you can never really tell how people are going to act, right? When a fight is about to break out, that's a moment where you get to see a brief peer into someone's brain and into how they actually are. Yeah. And then you get to see, okay, when shit gets down to the line, I realized this guy, this friend that I have, he's really there, And I thought, wow, like that is a level of loyalty that it's hard to come by, and that scarcity makes it valuable,
Thanks for sharing that. If you're just starting out, you don't have a business problem. You have a personal problem that reflects in your business. I guess that also came around when that actually applied in your life and in your business.
Yeah, that quote. I can't remember where that's from now. I think it might have been from Sam Evans or someone, but just the idea that when you're starting out and you are the entrepreneur and you don't have a business, you're just a person. You're one person who's trying to wear every single hat in the business. Anytime you run into an obstacle, it's you. You are the constraint, right? You as the one entrepreneur are the constraint. It's not like there's a team of 50 people and then, this one guy did this thing no, it's all you, right? So you're unlikely to have business problems at the beginning. Problems that look like business problems are really just personal problems masquerading.
Yeah, that reflects in your own business.
Exactly. It's just you. It's just your problems. Let's say, you're supposed to be doing a certain amount of outreach to new people that you want to potentially do business with. All right. And you look at it and you go, well, I haven't gotten enough new clients this month. Right. That sounds like a business problem. But then when you really look at it, it's because you didn't have the discipline to do enough outreach and do it consistently every single day. Mm-hmm. So that was a discipline problem. That was you. That's a personal problem, right? But it looks like a business problem to you. And so you can hide behind this idea of, oh yeah, well, I have all these business problems. How do I get a business solution to solve a business problem? Sometimes you need a personal solution. It's actually, the solution is to be found in fixing something in your own brain. And then the business problem disappears. You're like, huh. Yeah, and that's how it happens at the start most of the time.
Yeah, I like this parallel also with habits. With bad habits in particular. And it often reflects your bad mental health. So when it comes to, addictions or any bad habits, sleeping late or stuff, it often just ties back to your bad mental health, and it's a pure reflection of your bad mental health that you have to work on. So I think it's exactly the same thing in business. And I guess, would you say it's I don't think you could extrapolate it to your mental health is what's reflected in your business, but I guess it is just your own problems and your own personal issues.
Yeah, I think mental health is a tricky one because sometimes it's hard to say that mental health lines up with business success. Just because you have the best mental health doesn't mean that you're gonna have the best business success.
And
in fact, I know a lot of people. great amount of business success at the cost of their mental health.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, what do you think of that, by the way? Of people that, put their mental health on the line to have business success or any kind of success?
I think it's as a temporary trade-off, sure.
Okay.
As a mode of being to consistently be in your life for as long as you're alive, maybe not as intelligent, right? Right? Yeah, right. Yeah, like let's be just sensible about it. As a temporary state to put yourself in, as a trade-off, a sacrifice that you are deciding to make, sure, do it, right? Again, seasons, right? It doesn't have to be forever. But I know for me, I've made plenty of decisions that weren't good for my health, but that were going to benefit me in the short term in business. And I thought, okay, you know what? Fine. I'll accept that trade-off for now, right? I'll accept maybe having a bit too much caffeine or having a little bit less sleep than I want to be having. But it's okay because I know that it's temporary. So it's a trade-off.
Now, this is, I think, by far my favorite one. And I sort of stayed staring at it for at least 15 minutes.
Ooh.
And you took a picture of it. So I don't know, I guess you saw it in the contrast or something. So it goes like this. I can't cry about having a lot on my plate when my goal was to eat.
Whew. Right? Yeah, that one's crazy. Yeah, I don't know who we need to give credit to for that one, but...
What was the context? Did you take a picture of that at a conference, or was it you actually took a picture?
Somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah, I literally stole the photo somewhere. I saved it. Yep.
Stole it. It's a big word.
The what?
No, I just like how you say stole it.
Yeah. It's just, I saw it somewhere and I took a photo. No, I saved the photo on my phone.
Yeah.
So we need to... I don't know who gets credit for that quote, but it is an absolute banger. But... yeah, again, going back to the impulse to complain about things, right? I've more or less eradicated that in my mind. Every problem now that I face, I look at it again as I find the opportunity in it, right? Because between stimulus and response, there's always a space to choose what the response is going to be. And so when your goal is to make progress in your life along a certain dimension, let's say it's business, let's say you want to try and make more money, become financially free, etc. You are, by definition, inviting now a whole host of new problems that you have to solve. That is exactly what you're doing. So, again, going back to, if you're going to say you want something, you have to also then say that you want to make the freaking sacrifices for that thing. So don't complain about having a lot on your plate. Don't complain about, oh, well, I want this thing, but now they're telling me there's a price for that thing. No shit, Sherlock, right? Everybody wants something for nothing. Everybody wants something for nothing. But that's not how the world works. Yeah. Right? So there is a price associated with that thing.
If it was that easy, everyone would do it.
Exactly. And then guess what? It's an efficient, if you're in a capitalistic society with an efficient market, everybody gets that thing and goes to that thing, and then now nobody wants it anymore, right? Ta-da, welcome to efficient markets. So I think it goes back to that, which is, okay, well, don't cry about it. You said you wanted this thing, so here's the trade-off. The universe is presenting you with the trade-off. Okay, cool, you want this thing? I'm going to give it to you. Just, pay the price. Come on. So don't now go back on it and go, oh, well, no, I don't want it. Yeah.
You asked for it, yeah.
You asked for it.
Yeah, I was reflecting about that with my podcast and other projects. And it was at a stage where I just didn't know what to work on. I had no work. I was like, I want to work on something. I want to go, have a goal and, give myself goals, especially in the podcast. And then recently I just realized I have so much work to do. So much work. I'm like, I didn't ask for this, but actually I freaking did. Yeah. And I just paused there. I was like, this is what I wanted. And then I had to meditate on it, and now I'm actually enjoying it because I've asked for it. My plate is bloody full. And I better eat it up because I was and I am still starving. So, yeah. No, yeah, it's by far my favorite quote, and I'm going to have to put it up somewhere. I like to have these little post-its. I usually write quick little quotes or just, thoughts. And that's an amazing one, man.
Yeah, completely.
Some don't know how to start, others don't know how to stop. Now, I didn't know how to interpret that one, so it'd be interesting to see how you see it.
Yeah. So this one is original that I thought of.
Okay.
So some don't know how to start, others don't know how to stop. Okay. So I think when you're at the beginning of something, when you're just getting into something, your first impulse is to say, but I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to start, right? And some people stay there forever. They never get to the point where now when I want to start something, I just go, fuck, I'm going to figure it out. Like, give me a day. Literally, I'll say, give me a fucking day and I'll figure it out, right? So, for example, great example. 2 months ago, I decided, okay, you know what? I'm going to pick up guitar, right? I'm just going to pick up this guitar got handed down to me. And I just went, okay, cool. It's just sitting there somewhere taking up storage. I thought, I'll take it out. I'll play something, right? So my favorite artist is John Mayer. And so I said, okay, I'm going to learn a John Mayer song on the guitar. Terrible idea for someone who's never plucked. No, and it's not the easiest, right? For someone who's never plucked a string, I've never, done that before. I picked the song called In Your Atmosphere by John Mayer, which is a pretty difficult song to play on the guitar, right? So I could sit around and be like, yeah, well, I don't really know how to get started with the guitars. Do I pay for an instructor? Do I do an online lesson? Are YouTube videos good enough? I could sit here for ages and just be like, yeah, I don't know exactly how I should move forward on this. Or I could just pick it up, figure it out.
Yeah, just start and figure it out on the way.
Just figure it out and then get to the point where now I've become one of those people who doesn't know how to stop.
Because that's how I thought you'd see. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So now it's okay. Now some people, they don't know how to stop. They just keep going and they just keep finding ways to win. So there are people in this world who don't know how to even start finding a way to win, and there are people who simply cannot stop winning. They just keep finding new ways to win because they are now that person. They have now become the person who, in any circumstance, is going to find a way to turn that into a victory. So I'll give you a simple example in business. Okay, let's say you set up a Shopify store to sell something, and you don't really know how to start making sales. You just start running some ads to this landing page, get people to buy some product. Okay, you get a whole bunch of clicks, nothing happens, nobody buys your thing. Okay, the person who is in the sort of a victim mindset of, yeah, well, I don't really know, clearly this thing didn't work, whatever, they're going to look at that as a failure, right? Now, the person who has the other mind is going to go, okay, cool, which part of the ad worked? Okay, so I got clicks, which means that this ad actually performed. I actually got traffic to the site. Yeah, right? And so they take that as a win. They go, oh, yeah, okay, so that actually worked. But okay, so between click and someone buying, that's where the problem was. Okay, cool, so something on my landing page didn't really work. But in their head, they find a way to turn that into a win. They find the win, and then they get the dopamine feedback loop, and then that keeps them going. But the other person couldn't find that feedback loop in time. So they quit. Right? And so they're stuck as this person, well, I don't know how to get started in business. I tried this Shopify store, it didn't work. I tried SMMA, it didn't work. I tried YouTube automation, it didn't work. But they didn't have the mind that was able to find the feedback loop in time so that they could get the dopamine and go, oh, okay, now I have to find this next one. They didn't find a way to win, basically. So there's a quote, I can't remember who it was, maybe it's Charlie Munger, but it's, losers will always find a way to lose and winners will always find a way to win. Something like that. Right. Which honestly, it's like this, right? In my head, it really is this way.
It's funny. It's a sort of a fusion between the quote, which one was it? About the whole weak mind find problems and strong mind finds opportunities.
Yes.
And then mixed with, what was it? Sort of ties back to indecisiveness and, you're just scared to start. You don't know where you're going to start. Should I do this, and you just never end up starting. But I guess it sort of ties more into you don't actually know how to instead of but don't know how to start. But I think they sort of come back into the same mix.
But that is a sanctuary, right? The words "I don't know how to blank" is a safe haven that you can hide under for anything in your life. content creation, right? Well, I don't know. Imagine, Jared, someone came to you. Oh, I see all this stuff you're doing. It's really cool. Oh, but I don't know how to start doing all that. You probably want to slap them. Right? What do you mean you don't know how? Like, you know how to make an Instagram post, right? Just start, right? It's not about they don't lack the technical know-how.
Yeah.
They don't. It's actually that they can't.
How did they think I started? Bro,
exactly.
Like, fucking hell, bro. I just posted a video and then it just started.
Exactly, right? So some don't know how to start. I think it's actually cope, right? So right. So some don't know how to start, and others simply don't know how to stop. I can't stop now.
I think there's also people that are just overwhelmed and don't know actually how to start. But once they take out, clear out all the clutter, and see through the fog, they can actually see how they should start, and then it's just a matter of doing it or not and having the balls to. It's funny because this podcast started not as a joke, but we started this our first year in entrepreneurship with a lad, and one of the say homeworks or assignments we had to do in like December, so in the middle of the year, was to do a podcast format discussion about entrepreneurship in blah blah blah, some context. And I don't remember if he looked at me or if I looked at him and just said, we should start a podcast. And like this thought, like, bro, let's start a podcast. And we laughed, and then we just looked at each other seriously. And then we just started. I told him, let's do this, post one episode, even if it's crap, who gives a fuck? Okay, It's crap. I'm sure if you go back, I go back to it, and the audio is shit, and I'm stuttering, and he's not looking at the camera, blah, blah, but it happens. At least you started, and that's a big problem. Is people are just too scared to start, and they just want to be so perfect. But sometimes you have to go for quantity over quality, because quality will come with quantity. If that makes sense.
Yes. And another thing as well, a good reframe with this, is if you watching this video are someone who's waiting for perfect conditions to start something, one, those perfect conditions will never arrive, okay? But two, even if those let's grant that somehow the perfect conditions do arrive, okay? And then you do start when it's perfect. What happens now when the conditions inevitably go back to being imperfect? Because they will. So now what? So then what? Oh, so now you're just gonna fail? Right? Because you only knew how to make it work when the conditions were perfect. So now what happens when they get imperfect? Oh, so now you're just not going to do it anymore? No. So if anything, you should start when the conditions are the worst. That's actually the best time to start, because the conditions can only really get better from there, right? And so then you know how to do it when you have the least time, and when there's the most amount of things in play, you still know how to do it, so that when things get better, then it's only up from there, right? So that's an interesting way to think about this too.
I'll let you pick the last one.
So nobody is thinking about you. They're too busy thinking of themselves. This one strikes me a lot, because especially as someone who creates content, or someone who uses social media, it's so easy to fall into the trap of audience capture, basically. Of trying to post something, and right before you post something, you sort of go through this little audit process in your mind where you're thinking, okay, so if I post this thing, who's going to see it? Okay, this person's going to see it. What? Now I need to look at how they're going to perceive me through how they think about me. Okay, so what are they going to think? And then what's this other person going to think? And you kind of go through this weird stage where you're auditing what you're about to post through the lenses of certain people who follow you, So you're going, well, this guy follows me. What would he think about this? Okay, cool. And then this other guy, what's he gonna think? And the entire time, nobody was really thinking about you anyway, right? They have their own life, and they are presumably the main characters in their own lives. And if they're not, you're certainly not the fucking main character, right, of their life, right? Maybe it's Taylor Swift or somebody, right? Who knows? Maybe it's a soccer team, but it's not you. So for you to sit there and have the hubris of thinking, oh, well, yeah, what's this person going to think? What's that person going to think? In Chinese, there's this saying, I'm going to screw it up maybe, but I'll try and put it into English, which is, when you're 20 years old, you care about what everybody else thinks about you, and you're living a life that you think everybody else will approve of. When you're about 40 years old, you only care about your family and really what they think about you. Okay, and then when you're 60, you realize that the entire time nobody was even thinking about you anyway. Right? So yeah, so I think we spend so much time and energy expending that energy, worrying about what's this person gonna think, what's that person gonna think. Yeah. The entire time they're not even thinking of you, buddy. Just go and
Exactly.
do your thing.
They've got their own lives. They've got their own problems, their own issues, and yeah, it's crazy how we just constantly worry of the external, locus.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy, and that's another topic I had with the Ephraim Turner episode out next week. Oh no, this episode will come after 2 weeks ago then. It ties back to authenticity, and I had this sort of blockage when I try to fuse my personal accounts on Instagram and my podcast one, start collaborating on posts that will appear on my own page. I was like, what are they going to think? And like, worst case, they unsubscribe, which did happen, which I found very interesting. The first post I did collaborate with my podcast account. I think I lost 20 followers, which I found really super interesting. And I talked about it with a friend, and I had way less likes. It's not something I checked, but I noticed it, It sort of, popped out of the ordinary. And I just found it so interesting. And then if they want to leave, go. I mean, there's probably people I don't speak to anymore. So, just do your life. We gotta stop worrying about what people think and just, be you.
Yeah, a little, Marcus Aurelius meditations style reframe of this is in 3 generations, we're all going to be dead anyway. And anyone who could even remember any of this is all going to be dead too, right? So and anyone, their descendant, and they're all going to be dead. All those people whose opinions are stopping you from doing the thing that you actually want to do and yourself are all going to be dead in 3 generations. So why does it matter?
Yeah.
Do what you want to do for you, not for them. We're all going to be dead.
Amazing. Is there anything else you'd like to say to the world?
Well, I think pretty much that's maybe my what I have in my Instagram bio will be what I will leave the world with, which are things that I try to live by and the way that I try to move through the world, which is think critically, act virtuously, and live with intention.